Christine, how are you? Welcome to
I'm
the Big
good.
Day Wedding Podcast. Good,
Thank you
good.
for
Well,
having me.
it, yeah, of course, of course. Thanks for being here. I definitely want to, dip right into, the details of your wedding and how you've been so good about replanning it during COVID-19. But first, I thought it would be useful for our guests to hear a little bit about your wedding. Where it is, why you selected that location, how many people are coming, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So we selected Colorado Springs at Garden of the Gods Resort. We have about 180 people coming, or actually invited. Who knows how many people are going to end up showing up, but this is a destination wedding for Kyle and I, my fiance and I. We're from Texas, but we travel to Colorado pretty often every year just to go skiing and escape the heat here in Houston and the humidity. And we wanted to bring our guests there to show them a little glimpse of Colorado too.
Yeah. So you're going through what I think a lot of couples that have planned a destination wedding in Colorado, in beautiful, sunny Colorado, are going through, where you plan sort of a larger wedding, and now you had to navigate, pushing it into the fall. So when you initially planned your wedding, I mean, this was like your dream wedding, I take it. How did it feel? Like once everything was kind of like set and like all your vendors were hired and you were good to go. So this was back months ago, and
Yeah.
everything was sort of probably on autopilot. How did that all feel? And
It felt great once we had all of the vendors. We were still 3 months out to our original wedding date, May 30th. And I was on track with all the planning and everything. And we were on track. So we were in a good spot and just ready for the next month to hit. I think it was March. And I broke down everything on my planning list by months. And I was going to start on my March to-do list, and then news started breaking out, and that's pretty much where we started to see what other avenues we could do.
so you were about 3 months out. You had heard COVID-19 was spreading in Asia and now starting to hit here. And you started to kind of shift and maybe think, whoa, we might have to postpone our wedding. So what were some of the emotions that you had during that time?
Oh my gosh, it was just a roller coaster of emotions. It was just in denial at first. There's just no way. We thought this virus is just like gonna die out by the summertime. The heat's gonna kill it off. We'll be fine by May 30th, no issues. And then I think some of our guests started to tiptoe around the idea of what are your thoughts? And we were just like, great, now all of our guests are thinking about it too. And then we started watching the news more often. And then that's whenever we were just like, maybe it's time that we should reevaluate what we can do. But as far as emotions, I mean, denial, frustration. There were some nights that I couldn't even sleep just because I was like, what do you do? There's not a book for this. No, none of my friends had gone through something like this. It was all new, so.
This is definitely a first for a lot of people, and this is why I think it's, thank you again so much for being on, because I feel like this could be really useful for other brides to hear what
I
you're
might
going
start
through.
crying.
Oh no. You were, I mean, you've been so great to work with.
Likewise.
For our listeners, I'm going to be the videographer at Christine's wedding, but you're a very organized person. So and your wedding was in the spring, so you're one of the first people to get hit. So I think this is going to be really useful for folks. But so as far as your process goes, okay, so now we're 3 months out from your wedding, and you've kind of come to the realization, I might have to postpone the wedding. Just for brass tacks, like what was your process, and what were some of the first steps once you realized that, wow, we might need to switch our wedding date?
Yeah, so we were, like I said, in denial for a couple of weeks. I think March is whenever it started to filter in. We were dilly-dallying about the idea of postponing it, but we were like 75% sure we weren't going to do it. And then we got a message from our wedding planner, and she was stating, what are your thoughts on postponing your wedding? And that's when it really hit me, when she messaged me that, because she has a wedding every week, multiple weddings every week. And so I was like, she's hearing a lot more than we probably are. So I asked her to hop on a call. We both hopped on a call with her just to hear what she's hearing. And we didn't want to, no one wanted to postpone it. I'm sure every bride didn't want to postpone it. But then she started telling us that her March brides are postponing, her April brides are postponing. And May brides were postponing, except for the one wedding right before ours, which was the weekend before. And she was like, they're going to wait it out and see what's going to unfold throughout the next few weeks. And so that kind of gave me a little glimpse, like we were like a little bit hopeful with that. And we were like, well, let's just wait too. If they're going to wait, maybe things will change. And so we gave ourselves an end date of April 1st to make a decision. And I think the last week of March is whenever we decided that we're just going to postpone it. We talked to our parents about it. They put their 2 cents in it. And my mom was pretty devastated. She was in denial too. But Kyle's parents were just like, just the safety for our guests and everything like that, to give us a peace of mind too. Just so we're not waking up every single day wondering, like, what are we going to do next? So we pulled the plug the first week of April. Okay.
So that's kind of interesting to hear. So it was 60 days then. That's when you made your decision. About 60 days out, you were like, we are officially changing it. And for you, I'm imagining it was more difficult as well, because a lot of your guests are coming from Texas. I mean, we do have a lot of brides, a lot of couples that are based in Colorado that could maybe shorten that window a little bit, but for you guys, people have plane tickets, hotel reservations. And so with your guest list, were people within that 60 days pretty flexible to change everything, or how did that work with your guests? At what point in your process, April 1st, you decide that you're moving it? Did you reach out for your revised guest count and things like that?
So we sent our invites out mid-February, and then we got maybe like a handful of RSVPs by the end of February. And then once again, during that March time period, I think just how we were feeling, our guests were feeling the same way, and there was a little bit of a pump on the brakes. And we weren't getting any more RSVPs. So then once we had decided that we were going to postpone, we had to let our guests know, and that was a whole thing in itself, is how do we let all of our guests know? Do we send an email out? Do we send a text out? Do we send out more postponement cards, or what are they calling it now? Change the date cards.
It's a thing.
It is. It was slowly filtering in with all of the major wedding websites and the places where you get your invitations and everything. And we had already spent a lot of money on our invitations. So we were just like, do we spend even more money on change the date cards? And we decided to do that. We just thought it was more formal, and a lot of the websites gave out discounts though. So if you had to get the change the date cards, they were offering it to brides who had a wedding from in that grace period, March to May or whatever. And so we were able to get a good discount there.
Okay. And so for our couples listening, I assume this is a digital change the date card sent out via email, or it's a physical one?
No. Okay. They had digital ones, but we just opted out to send it out.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know why. We figured it was a good price, and we were just like, we might as well just send it out.
Yeah, I mean, would you mind sharing which site you used, and if you were happy with them?
So I had shopped around on Minted, and then Zazzle, and what was the other one? Zola. How could I forget? That's where our wedding website is. Zola had it too, and then it's a new customized thing. Like, not a lot of websites had a lot of different designs and everything. So I actually ended up making mine through Zazzle, and it was really cheap. I think Zazzle's pretty cheap overall, but yeah.
Okay. So that's good to know. So Zazzle was offering a discount, and you did it through them. And then so your invites went out. So for you picked the date. You picked the revised date before you got your final guest count. You were just like, this is the date, and you guys can choose to come or go.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
We had to line it up with all of our vendors. That was the biggest thing, is make sure that our venue had a date, and then it had to line up with all of the vendors. That was first and foremost what we had to do. And then we sent out the postponement cards.
Right. So it's my understanding, I mean, the venue is probably the most important thing to lock down first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you sort of like make a priority list of vendors and because obviously it will be tricky for all of your vendors to be available again on that date. Did you say, hey, like whatever, photography is really important to us, floral is maybe second? Did you set a priority list, or what was your process like for that?
Yeah. So we got with our venue just to see what other 2020 dates were available. And then I actually made like an Excel spreadsheet of all of our vendors that we had in their availability. So we got a handful of dates from our venue and then sent those dates out to our vendors to see what would match up. And then we just kind of did a check mark next to each date that they were available, and whatever date lined up, and it ended up being September 12th. Well, not for you initially, but which we were really devastated for, and we were just that was a hard one, because I knew it wasn't going to work out. It wasn't going to work out to where everybody was going to match up. Yeah. And we knew we were going to lose someone, and unfortunately it was you initially, and we were really bummed about that, and we had to shop for a new videographer, and we were comparing everyone to you, and it just wasn't the same, and that was just something that we kind of just put on the back burner, because we were just like, let's just take a step back just to figure out what we really want and everything like that. So that was our process in figuring out the new date.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's been on the vendor side too. It's been interesting as well to develop our processes for this, putting it into spreadsheets, and having couples that have want to change their date and have multiple dates that they want to change to. So it's been a little bit of shuffling around, but it's working out so far, and I'm really glad we get to work together. So
I know, me
that's
too.
Awesome. But so I'm really impressed with your organizational ability here, and it sounds like you've had like a lot of honestly successes in rescheduling your wedding. So I mean,
luckily.
what are your wins? And you're keeping a great attitude, which I think is huge. But what is your what have been your successes, I guess, in doing this, and what have been some things where you're like, whoa, I would have maybe done that differently, or what have your big challenges been, I guess?
That's tough. I guess the successes would definitely be just the vendors and the venue lining up. I actually joined a support group on Facebook because I just didn't know what to do initially. I had no idea where to even begin, and I was just getting advice from other brides. But everybody was just putting their 2 cents in this Facebook group about what they were doing. And I just read some horror stories from some brides as far as like deposits weren't coming back, or their wedding was in the next 3 weeks and they still had to pay the full amount of their venue or what have you. So I read some pretty nasty stories, and lawyers were involved in everything. So I got pretty lucky there as of now, knock on wood. But that's a huge success for us, for sure, is that we were able to keep all of our vendors in our venue right now. Yeah. Anything that I would change differently, I don't know. I don't even know if I did everything correctly right now, but we'll see. Yeah. We'll see.
It's still in process until we get you married.
Yeah, exactly. We're not in the clear yet.
You brought up a really good point. I know you can't speak to everybody else's vendors and deposits and things like that. It sounds like some of the folks on that on the Facebook group were having some issues. But what were, I guess in general, what were your vendors like as far as that goes? As far as deposits and rescheduling, were there any fees associated with rescheduling? Were you not going to get a large chunk back of your initial deposit if you were not able to work with them? How did that work?
Luckily, like we were really blessed. We were really lucky with all of our vendors. They obviously all had maybe a change fee if this was a normal circumstance, but because it's a pandemic, they were completely understanding. they were going to switch our date without any issues or any additional fees or anything like that. But as far as deposits, I know across the board they were going to keep all of our deposits. That's just non-refundable, and it says it in the contract too that the deposits are non-refundable. So I understand, and I get it from the business side too. You're running a business, and a small business at that, so I don't blame you that you're holding on to the deposit at the end of the day, especially for our vendors.
So when you're going forward and kind of like finishing up planning for the new date now, I guess, first of all, are you done planning for your fall date? And if
No.
you are, you're not. Okay.
No.
What?
I emotionally, I had to take a step back. I honestly did at that. I think I've taken about 2 months off just because I was like, well, we were 3 months out from the May date, and I figured, let me just start back up once I'm 3 months out to the September date.
Okay.
Just because me planning everything in the past month or so, it's just so up and down as far as uncertainty. You just don't know what's going to happen. And I'll shop for whatever, like wedding party gifts or something. And I'm like, I don't even know if this is going to happen. Like, you have that uncertainty in your mind. So I'll probably start back up in what is it, June.
In June. So that
so
would
another
be
week
about,
or so.
Because your wedding's in September, so that's about three months out. So right now, what are the feelings? You're kind of like in a purgatory. You're kind of just like in this holding period.
Yeah, I mean, things are starting to lift back up here and there, and so I have that hope that everything is going to be fine by September. But I definitely have the worst case scenario in the back of my mind as well. So as far as going back to my to-do list, I'm obviously not going to get anything where I'm not going to get a refund back or anything like that. So, but for the most part, it's the little details that aren't major that I need to get done right away or anything like that. So I'm going to take my time for the next 3 months, but we just have to play it by ear, day by day, and see what happens.
Day by day. That's a good attitude. You brought up something to me offline that I had not even thought about that I thought was really interesting. Did you also have to cancel any like periphery events like bridal showers, bachelorette parties or trips? And I guess, did you have to do that? And if you did you reorganize them and what's going on with that?
So that actually was probably right after we had decided, maybe in tandem with when we were trying to switch dates and lining all the dates up with our vendors. We had my bridal shower at the end of April and my bachelorette also during that time period. And that, honestly, my bachelorette was something, I mean, maybe I'm being selfish, but that was something that I was really, really, really looking forward to. I was so excited for that moment, and we had to cancel it. It was in Mexico, and it was about 15 girls, and we had to cancel it just because I could tell there was, well, now looking back, the resort shut down anyways, so we wouldn't have been able to go. But at that time, the girls were just a little uncertain about going and flying overall. And then the bridal shower, which was the weekend right before that, our hosts were a little skeptical and didn't know if it was the right idea to have a party. And so we had to cancel that too, but that hit hard. That hit really, really, really hard. Yeah. Because we canceled it about 2 or 3 weeks before those two events.
Do you think that you will ever do that? Do a bachelorette party post-wedding?
I don't know. Some people have thought, like, they've talked to me a little bit about it, and I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I don't know what my girlfriends are talking about. They kind of have looped me out of it. So I'm not sure if it'll happen right before the wedding or right after the wedding. Yeah. I really don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah. Sounds like the priority might be, let's do the wedding and then figure that out later.
Yeah. I'm leaving that completely up to them. All of my girlfriends and the hosts of my bridal shower, I'm going to leave it totally up to them, and whatever they're comfortable with, I'm completely up for. So yeah.
If you could talk to a bride that's planning their wedding right now, for either later in 2020 or in 2021, is there anything that you would recommend to them? I know we spoke a little bit about contracts and deposits. Do you have any advice that you could offer to couples that are just getting into the process that you started 6 months ago, or probably more than 6 months ago? Yeah.
I think the biggest thing and the most expensive thing, more than likely, is your venue. Talk to your venue and see what your options are. That's, I think, first and foremost. See what rules they have or what's in your contract already, and go from there. And then, if anything, line it up with all of your vendors, and whatever matches up. And no one planned for this. And you're not the only one going through it. There's so many brides around the world that are dealing with this. At first, I was feeling sorry for myself, and then reading all of these posts in this Facebook group, I'm like, I'm not alone. And this was completely uncontrollable. This is something that came out of nowhere. This isn't what we expected. But you just got to take it day by day, and just have a priority list and have a to-do list, and don't just get so overwhelmed with everything and try to fix it all in one day, because it's not going to be fixed all in one day.
What was the name of the Facebook group that you found helpful?
It's called The Bridal Journey. Well, it's an Instagram an account called The Bridal Journey, and then they made a Facebook group called The Bridal Journey Through COVID-19.
Wow. Okay. Great. I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Has there been anything else on an emotional from an emotional standpoint that's helped you, either a friend or a family or a member or anything like that? Or your
just
fiance.
My fiance,
yeah.
Just my fiance. He is my rock. He's the one that's going through it with me, and he is my backbone. Honestly, he helps me through all of this, and he knows that he's going through it with me. So nobody else is. None of our friends or family or anything, but he's living with it day in and day out with me, and he's so positive about everything. So. He's my rock.
That's a good sign for everything once you guys are married, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. If we can get through this, we can get through anything.
Exactly. Your first test before you're even married.
Yeah, seriously.
Your first big test.
And I'm sure he's dealt with a lot of emotions from me and everything like that. So, like I said, you just got to take it day by day and just think of the bigger picture. Like, it is your wedding. You've dreamt of this your entire life. But at the end of the day, you're going to be with him, and that's all that matters.
That's a great attitude. We're so excited to be with you guys at your wedding in September when it finally does happen.
Yeah.
And something that I've been chatting with about other people, other vendors in the industry, other photographers, is when people finally do get together again, it's going to be so powerful, because there's all this kind of obviously pent up energy happening right now. So it's going to be all the more beautiful and powerful once we all do get together again.
Yes, exactly. That's what all of our friends and family are saying too. And it'll be a great celebration once it eventually happens. And we just got to be patient right now.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, on that positive note, thank you so much again, Christine, for being here with me on the Big Day podcast. I think that there's a lot of couples out there that will really appreciate all the information you just gave, and we're excited to work with you here in about 3.5 months.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. Hopefully this will be helpful for all the other brides that are going through it, and just hang in there. That's all you can do. Hang in there.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.